So it is Tuesday, the day off from when the cost cap certificates are supposed to be given out, basically saying that these teams adhered to the cost cap situation, did not go over, or they announced the teams that definitely went over the cost cap. Now, there are two different categories in which they can go over. You have minor, you have major, and their title kind of different is minor, and then you have materials. Okay, materials is the big one. That's going to be the major. That's by 5% or more. Minor is 5% or less. That's where they split it. So let's kind of go into that because what we want to know, I know there's a lot of things floating out there, and I'm going to say this. I think you should taper your expectations by now of what you've seen from the FIA and Formula One, what they will and what they have not done when it comes to certain teams. Okay. So don't think, at least don't come off or don't assume that this is going to come out. You're finally going to have some retribution to them, not only admitting that things were wrong in 2021 by firing or getting rid of Massey, removing him first. And then next thing you know, he gets out of there and he's signing a non-disclosure agreement where he can't even talk about the situation that took place, which is faulty, right? We know that there's a lot of foul play there. We know that there's a lot of wrong things that happen. We know that Lewis Hamilton, as a driver in Formula One, was robbed of a championship. It wouldn't matter if it was Lewis Hamilton or another driver. What took place was done wrong. It is wrong and still always will be wrong. But with that being said, do not expect what may come of this to rectify or right that more or at a bigger percentage than the smaller percentage that they already kind of have put out there. Okay. The removal of Massey is nowhere near an exception or an acceptable level of admittance for what was done. Okay. Also, we're not sure what teams did or did not breach the cost cap. We're not sure about that yet, right? There's speculation that it's Red Bull and Aston Martin. We're not sure about that. Okay. We will find out, if we find out, Wednesday, especially if nothing foul goes to play behind the walls or behind the doors and, hey, let's sign this, make this happen, and then we can issue you a certificate without really saying what took place. Let's just give you some information on what you can expect and why and what things are coming from. So minor overspin breach, okay? And we will go into like the whole points thing of the possibilities of other things that people may be thinking. But right now, let's go over this minor overspin breach. As you see right here, is going to be less than 5% or the following review board. Now, they're going to talk about everything they're going to review and what they can decide and what kind of penalties. But the minor overspin, the penalties for this are more like sporting penalties, okay? Nothing here is talking about championship points or suspending said team or driver from competing in other competitions, okay? Not to say that they can't, but don't expect too much from that if it's a minor. What we're looking for is the major, and the major comes in when you talk about material overspending. Okay, material overspending is 5% or more, exceeding the cost cap by 5% or more. Here is where we get into the penalties that can correlate into championship points by the constructors being deducted or championship points by the driver being deducted and other things. Okay, so other things that you may or may not see, but what you could see as a result of the breach of the major, which is materials. And I'm going to go into say this. It was a very beautiful point brought up by a Wolfpack family member in the Wolves Den Zoom meet. You don't have access to it if you're not a member. If you're not a member, consider being a member because there you have a voice. On these other platforms, you'll go and make comments. But in the Wolves Den, you get to speak to not only other viewers, but family members, subscribers, and family members of the Wolfpack and myself, plus guests that I will bring in and out of there when it is able to happen. But a big shout out to Jessica Starship because she made this point when I actually said that I would not blame, and we're going to use Red Bull for the example because Red Bull is at the tip of this, being that they were at a debacle and a scandal championship in 2021. And I said that I didn't think that they should probably deduct points from Max as the driver because I thought it was on a bigger organizational scale and maybe it should just be constructors. Jessica pushed back on me with that by saying a very good and solid point, and I actually bent the knee and was like, "Yeah, you got a point." And so did the rest of the members in the chat or in the meeting. Jessica said, "No, Max should have championship points deducted if this is found to be foul because he resulted and benefited from the overexpenditures going into materials which made that car competitive for him to be there. So, in fact, he should have points deducted as a driver from the championship." Very good point. Gotta admit. Okay, cool. So I moved my stance off that because that made a lot of sense. And that's what you need to do sometime. And that's why we have the Zoom calls in the Wolf Den. But deduction of constructor championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reporting period of the breach. If the breach is a reporting period of 2021, then yes, those points from that season will be deducted. If they deduct points from this season, it's going to look really bad on the Formula One. It already looks bad on them. FIA and Formula One are starting to look real faulty. The integrity's starting to look real bad. If they don't deduct from 2021, and these are breaches that we're talking about in 2021, and they try to find some reason to move it to 2022, it looks bad for them, all right? Also, deduction of driver championship points awarded for the championship that took place, once again, during the reporting period of the breach. If the reporting period that they are inspecting and issuing certificates for is 2021, then that is where Max will lose his points if Red Bull is that team. If not, any other team or driver that is found to have breached that, that is where their points will be deducted in 2021. Suspension for one or more stages of a competition or competitions, excluding for avoidance of doubt the race itself, all right? The next thing, all right, there's a few more. Limitations on the ability to conduct aerodynamic or other testing. So that's probably going to be wind tunnel testing, anything that might happen in the off season going into next season, they'll be deducted or lose some time or ability for that. Suspension for an entire competition or competitions, including for the avoidance of doubt the race itself. Exclusion from the championship. Now, exclusion from the championship would have to be this season or maybe next season. They really don't outline it there. They can't exclude them. I mean, could you exclude them from 2021? I guess you would just take them out all together, and then that would mean second place, which would have been Lewis Hamilton in 2021, would come up. Maybe. It's really kind of vague and kind of gray there for me. So it's not really indicting or really limiting to last season, the reporting season, or the current season, or maybe future season. So I think they left them some little playroom in there. Don't be surprised. Reduction of the cost cap, provided that the reduction specified shall only be applied with respect to the year following the punishment being handed out. Those are some things that you could look for to possibly happen depending where it is, if it's minor or major, for the teams and or drivers that are found to be involved in breaching the cost cap, okay? Now let's get into another topic that is attached to this whole situation. Everybody is waiting for tomorrow, Wednesday, to find out what is going to happen, who breached, and if we find out who breached, how did they breach, major or minor, and if they breached minor, if they breached major, what is going to be allocated as a penalty to them, and who's going to suffer from that penalty, the constructors or the drivers. Okay, so if we go into this, if we look at constructor standings in 2021, let's just say it's Red Bull, okay? Because right now there's no talk of Mercedes being involved. The two teams that are speculated are Aston Martin and Red Bull. Not to say that Mercedes may not be involved in this. We don't know yet, okay? But right now the hot topic is Red Bull or Aston. Even if Red Bull loses constructor championship points, it doesn't change anything because they weren't in first, and the team below them definitely have far more points that Red Bull would have to be deducted in order to change that spot. Let's get to the more hotter topic. What happens between Max Verstappen getting an Aston championship and Lewis Hamilton being robbed of a championship, which is the way most people feel? 395.5, 387.5. Remember, they went in tied into this race, okay? You would need more than 8 points to be deducted from Max in order to change anything as far as point standing. You need at least 9 points to change this in order for this championship to change its landscape, meaning Lewis Hamilton would get the championship for 2021. Max would be redacted or retracted from the championship because of the deduction of points due to a major breach, which would be a materials breach if found. And if they actually say we're going to deduct from the driver and not the constructors, that's still a play. Doesn't say that they have to do both. I didn't see where it said they have to do both. They could choose to do one or the other, or maybe they could choose to do both. We don't know. We'll have to see. And we don't even know if this situation will come to fruition in order for them to even have to explore these options. But here you would need at least 9 points to change that. Now, let's say they did 8 points. At 8 points, that would put them at a tie at 387.5. With that tie, I would assume that still Max would still be able to retain the championship because he had. Now, I know a lot of people try to make it seem like, oh, Max had so many more wins than Lewis Hamilton in 2021. No, he didn't. Max had 10 to Lewis Hamilton's 8, 2 more wins. He had 18 podiums to Lewis Hamilton's 17 podiums, 1 more podium. It's not this big gap that most delusional people would have you believe that Max just totally destroyed Lewis Hamilton in 2021 with a gob number of 5 or 6 wins over. It was 2 and 1 more podium than him. That's it. And really, I say 1 more podium, not actually equal podiums. Well, no, it could be 1 more podium because even if Max got second in the championship in Abu Dhabi, it will still be 18. But it would be 1 more win. And if it was a 5th, everybody would be drunk. So we're not going to deal in ifs. We're going to deal with what is 2 more wins than Lewis Hamilton. That's not what people kind of, when they say it to you, they make it seem like it was 5, 6, or 10 more wins than Lewis Hamilton. It wasn't that. Okay, it wasn't that. But still, if they're even in points after a deduction due to a major breach in the cost cap, it's going to be even points, but still, Max will get the tiebreaker because he had more wins and 1 more podium than Lewis Hamilton in 2021. So, in order for there to be this big astronomical change that some people may be looking for or hoping for, don't. Don't hope for that. Don't wish for that. Just wish that whatever comes out is true and right. And with everything being true or right, looking for the FIA and Formula One to recapture some of the much lost integrity that they have suffered thus far. You got a lot of people not happy, and people, not all of these people are not Lewis Hamilton fans. Some of these people are just Formula One fans that have watched Formula One for decades. Okay. Some of you getting on my channel talking to people like they just brand new when probably you ain't even but 5 years in. Some of these people have been watching for decades. I literally had a viewer in my comment section paying homage and big shout out to you that has been watching Formula One for over 25 years. Over 25 years. I've had one that was probably around 30 years. So yeah, there are people here in my community that are longtime Formula One viewers and supporters, and they didn't agree with what happened in 2021. So what do you say to them? Because a lot of you that are probably in there talking crap probably aren't there yet. And if you are there, so be it. Everybody doesn't agree with you. Everybody doesn't agree with me. That's just the way it's going to be. But one thing you can stop doing is stop trying to bash people that you think are DTS Formula One fans. It doesn't matter. Why do you think they did it? Because Formula One's not going to survive without a revolving door of fans and spectators to financially support this sport. Just being honest, don't know how economics work. You need a flowing amount of clientele to come into your establishment to continually grow money and finances. You can't survive off a locked demographic. You can't do it. It's not going to happen. Why? Because that demographic is going to get older. Things are going to change. They're going to leave. You need things, new blood to come in. That's just the way it is. They're looking to build a new Formula One. Not to say that you're going to like it, but this is what pretty much they've spawned. And, you know, hey, forgive Liberty Media, American company, definitely. I don't agree with what they've done. So it is what it is, but that's pretty much your information. Taper your expectations. Let's just look for things to be right and at least be fair at some point in time, because Yeah, it hasn't been the best. But anyway, we got Japan coming up. Honda, big shout out. I know there's a whole big thing out there thinking that, Red Bull may have, let Perez win a race, push Max back so that they can win the championship in Japan due to paying homage to Honda. I don't know about that. If it happens, then we can discuss that. But yeah, he's going to win it before the season is out. Don't know when that's going to be. If he keeps driving like he drove last time, it'd be a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying? A little bit longer. But also, keep in mind, I don't know if mathematically Max can't manage to finish on podium going through the season, and Charles does, on top of actually winning some of these races, where that might put him. We can explore that. I'm not sure right now. I'm not looking at the points right now. I'm looking at the mathematical probabilities. If you are, get below in the comment section, lay that out for us. We like learning. We learn together. Everybody learns something new every day. Doesn't necessarily have to be Formula One. All right. Peace. Thanks for watching another episode of Wolfpack Performance. Don't forget to check out some of my other content on Formula One and motorsports topics. Like, share, subscribe, and we go live on the weekends. See you soon.